If you've been to a ski resort before, you probably think that a double black diamond is the most dangerous type of skiing or riding you could do. But you'd be dead wrong. There's a level of downhill slope tackling that far outclassifies any traditionally rated trail, and that involves entering the backcountry. Out-of-bounds skiing takes your old concept of adventure and throws it out the window, but with it, same goes for the risks. So what exactly are these risks, and how can you prepare for them? Well, in this video, we'll go through all the important differences between backcountry skiing and inbounds resort skiing, and why understanding these distinctions is essential before you step beyond the ropes. Before we jump in, special thanks to Onyx Backcountry for sponsoring this video. More on them in a bit. Let's jump right into it. The first thing we need to cover is exactly what backcountry skiing or riding is. Backcountry terrain refers to any skiing or riding area outside the boundaries of a patrolled ski resort. The defining feature of backcountry terrain isn't the type of skiing or riding, it's the absence of resort infrastructure. In the backcountry, there are no groomed trails, no patrol teams, and oftentimes no lifts to enforce safety or provide assistance. If you're not in North America, anything outside the bounds of a marked trail is often considered backcountry. In these regions, you'll often hear this type of terrain referred to as off-piste, so if you hear the phrase off-piste, know it is effectively interchangeable with backcountry. Because of these circumstances, you don't necessarily need to be a tenured expert in technical skiing or riding to venture into the backcountry. There are plenty of modestly sloped areas that allow you to explore untracked snow without requiring expert-level skills. However, what matters most in the backcountry is not your ability to ski or ride, but your emergency and hazard preparedness. So what kinds of emergencies and hazards should you be prepared for? Well, quite a few. When you're inbounds, a good ski resort will carefully mark trails to ensure skiers and riders know what to expect, but in the backcountry, there are no such warnings. So for things like steepness, difficulty, and even hazards like cliffs or rocks, you are totally on your own. The possibilities are endless, but so are the risks. One big potential hazard is the sheer gnarliness of the terrain. Backcountry skiing opens up a world of terrain far beyond what resorts can offer. You might encounter 200-foot mandatory straight lines, 10-story cliff drops, or chutes so narrow they're nearly impassable. With this freedom comes danger. If you accidentally drop into a line that's too steep or technical, there's no ski patrol to call for help. That's why understanding your abilities and making sure your intended route is thoroughly researched is critical. But the technicality of terrain is far from the only backcountry hazard out there. One of the most common issues is a lack of sufficient snow cover, especially in early season or low snow conditions. Within the bounds of a resort, mountain employees do a surprising amount of work to make sure a ski slope is in good skiable shape, and a lot of these pieces of work may not be apparently obvious to the untrained eye. When it comes to the backcountry, thin snowpacks may look okay on the surface, but they may not fully conceal sharp rocks, exposed roots, or buried stumps, all of which can lead to equipment damage or, much worse, injuries. In addition, without any grooming maintenance, snow coverage is often highly variable, with wind-exposed ridges or sun-facing slopes offering far less protection than shaded valleys or leeward sides. When out of bounds at a ski resort, it's important to approach thinly covered areas cautiously and stick to zones with visibly adequate snow depth. Creeks, rivers, and open water present another unique backcountry challenge. Snow bridges, which are formed when snow spans a creek or river, can appear solid, but may collapse under your weight, plunging you into icy water and posing a severe hypothermia risk. Frozen lakes and ponds are also a serious risk, especially if they're not readily visible, and a breakthrough can turn a backcountry outing into a life-threatening situation. When navigating areas with water features, staying on higher, more stable ground is almost universally the safer bet, unless your guide advises you otherwise. Tree wells are another hidden danger lurking in deep powder conditions. These can happen in resorts as well, but they still pose just as much, if not more of, a danger in the backcountry. These loose snow pockets form around the base of large trees, creating a trap that can bury or immobilize an unsuspecting skier or rider. Falling into one is a serious hazard, as self-rescue is often difficult or impossible. When you're in the backcountry, be sure to stay in open areas with good visibility, and always ride with a partner who can assist if you become trapped. Another consideration in the backcountry: animals. From foxes to moose to wolves, wildlife encounters can add an unexpected challenge to your adventure. Carrying bear spray and knowing how to react to wildlife may be just as important as other safety precautions. Okay, so we've covered quite a few hazards in the backcountry so far. but these circumstances are already quite risky under the clearest and best weather conditions, and under inclement weather conditions, the consequences of venturing into the backcountry can be far worse. Whiteout conditions, high winds, and poor visibility compound to nearly every other danger, making it much more difficult to spot many of the hazards we just mentioned. Sudden storms or fog can obscure cliffs, cornices, and crevices, making navigation treacherous and amplifying the risk of getting lost. But one of the most significant differences between resort skiing and backcountry skiing is avalanche mitigation, or the lack thereof. Within the bounds of a ski resort, ski patrol teams work tirelessly to reduce the risk of avalanches through controlled blasts, snow analysis, and terrain management. Once you step into the backcountry, though, all bets are off. In the backcountry, avalanches pose a constant threat, and recognizing these areas is a critical skill for backcountry skiers and riders. While no slope is entirely free of avalanche risk, certain factors make some terrain far more dangerous. Here's a general rule of thumb of how to identify and assess avalanche-prone areas. First off, the slope angle. Avalanches are most likely to occur on slopes with angles between 30 degrees and 45 degrees. This range provides the perfect balance of steepness for a snowpack to release under stress. While steeper slopes over 45 degrees can also avalanche, snow tends to slough off these pitches more regularly, preventing significant accumulation. On the other hand, slopes under 30 degrees rarely produce avalanches unless they are below steeper avalanche-prone terrain where debris could funnel into them. When planning around avalanches, it's important to understand terrain traps. These are natural features that can worsen the consequences of an avalanche, and in some cases, catastrophically so. Examples of terrain traps include gullies and ravines, which can funnel snow and debris, cliffs, as being swept off a cliff by an avalanche can result in catastrophic injuries or death, and tree wells, as forests or large trees can pin or bury skiers and riders during an avalanche. Even if a slope seems low risk in isolation, terrain traps can significantly raise the stakes. Another way to identify avalanche risk is in snowpack stability. Weak layers within the snowpack, caused by factors like early season snow that was weakened under cold conditions, are a frequent culprit in avalanches. Recognizing these conditions requires both training and experience. Digging snow pits to analyze the layers of the snowpack is standard practice for backcountry travelers, though it's time consuming and has to be done correctly to yield useful information. Another thing that can heavily influence avalanche risk is the direction a slope faces, or its aspect. Sun-exposed slopes, which are south-facing in the northern hemisphere and north-facing in the southern hemisphere, are more likely to develop unstable snow due to rapid warming during sunny conditions. On the other hand, shady, north-facing slopes often harbor persistent weak layers due to slower snowpack consolidation. Wind can also play a role, as leeward slopes, or those sheltered from the wind, tend to accumulate wind-deposited snow, which can form slabs prone to triggering. In addition to terrain factors, there are some other signs that indicate a snowpack is unstable and prone to avalanching. A couple of these include shooting cracks, or visible cracks radiating from your skis or snowboard, whumping sounds, or a deep, unsettling whump noise that signals a collapsing weak layer in the snowpack, and recent avalanche activity. So if you see fresh avalanches nearby, the snowpack is not stable. Before heading out, always check avalanche forecasts for the area you plan to explore. These reports provide vital information on snow stability and recent activity. But even with a low-risk forecast, the conditions can change rapidly. You'll be in the best shape consulting topographical maps and GPS tools to pre-plan your route. And that's where our sponsor Onyx Backcountry comes in. Whether you're carving turns at the resort or venturing into the backcountry, being prepared makes all the difference, and that's where Onyx really shines. It's an incredible tool for skiers and riders, offering detailed 3D maps, slope angles, and weather data, all in one easy-to-use app. Inbound skiing comes with marked trails, lifts, and ski patrol, but once you head into the backcountry, it's a whole different ballgame. Onyx Backcountry helps you map out routes, identify terrain hazards, and steer clear of avalanche-prone zones. Plus, you can download maps to use offline, so even if you're deep in the mountains with no signal, you're still covered by the app. So why'd we decide to partner with Onyx Backcountry? Well, one of our favorite parts about it is its integration of tools specifically designed for skiers and riders, versus other apps which are more general. Onyx includes clearly marked boundaries for ski resorts and public lands, so you know where you are at all times. It also provides precise slope angle shading layered directly onto maps, making it easier at a quick glance to identify potential avalanche terrain than many of the other apps out there. The app also offers certain trail and terrain insights that are specifically tailored to skiers and riders, Some of the most important ones we've found are real-time SnowTel snow depths and recent imagery, which updates every 10 days to give you the most up-to-date satellite imagery of any area. These are way beyond what you'd find on a typical weather app or Google Earth. And speaking of snow, the app's snow forecasting tools make it easy to track storms and plan for those perfect powder days, whether you're inbounds or in the backcountry. Check out the link in the description to try it for yourself. And if you want to try one of the premium versions, we've negotiated a 7-day free trial and 20% discount after that. Stay safe, ski smart, and we'll see you out there. Okay, so now you know of the many risks but also thrilling opportunities that come with an excursion into backcountry terrain. So how do you make sure to choose a safe and manageable route? Well, while tools like Onyx Backcountry are pretty incredible, they can't solve for all of the route tracking puzzles the backcountry throws at you in the immediate moment, and they are not substitutes for a general common sense knowledge of what to do. If you see a slope with only a few tracks, or even just one or two, you should think twice before dropping in, especially if you're not with an experienced guide. A sparsely tracked slope can be a huge red flag. It could mean that those who attempted the line before you encountered serious trouble. Maybe they had to hike out of an impassable route, such as one blocked by a cliff band or a debris field. On the flip side, routes with multiple tracks are usually more promising. They suggest that the terrain is navigable and has been successfully skied or ridden by others. Of course, this doesn't eliminate all risk. You'll still need to assess snow stability, steepness, and terrain traps, but a slope that sees regular traffic is generally a safer bet than one that only has a handful of lines. Backcountry skiing is about calculated risks, and choosing well-traveled routes can significantly reduce the chance of finding yourself in an unmanageable situation. Also, it is important to note that ski tracks do not indicate avalanche stability. Sometimes it can be the 4th, 5th, or even 10th person down that triggers a slide, so you will need to do your own homework. When in unfamiliar terrain, the safest option is to hire a guide who knows the area and can lead you through the routes suited to your ability level. Speaking of guides, here's perhaps the biggest rule of thumb for backcountry skiing: never go alone. A partner can literally save your life in the event of an avalanche, injury, or gear failure. Whereas Ski Patrol is trained to respond quickly to injuries, sweep slopes for lost skiers, and deal with emergencies, these services plainly do not exist in the backcountry, and we cannot overstate how important that is to know. This means there's no one to come to your aid unless you've planned ahead. If you're unfamiliar with the terrain or backcountry skiing in general, consider hiring a guide who knows the terrain and understands the risk. Guides can provide invaluable expertise, from choosing safe routes to teaching avalanche safety. Okay, so there's a lot of caveats to going into the backcountry, and as a result, backcountry skiing or riding requires much more than your standard resort gear. At a minimum, you'll need avalanche safety equipment, which includes a beacon, shovel, and probe. These tools are essential for finding and rescuing a buried skier or rider in the event of an avalanche. But owning the gear isn't enough. You need to know how to use it. Avalanche safety courses are a must for anyone venturing into the backcountry. If you're planning to hike uphill, you'll also need specialized touring gear. Skis with touring bindings, split boards, or climbing skins allow you to ascend slopes efficiently rather than carrying them on your shoulders. A lightweight, durable backpack is also crucial for carrying your gear, water, food, and extra layers. Depending on the conditions, crampons, an ice axe, or a rope might also be necessary. So we've talked about the dangers and precautions needed in backcountry terrain, and there are several. But what are the other differences versus inbound skiing and riding that makes a backcountry adventure so special? Well, one of the biggest definitional differences is its limitless potential. You're not restricted by resort boundaries or lift schedules for the types of slopes you can hit, the hours you ski, the distances you go, and the elevations you reach. A big thing to note is that entering the backcountry doesn't necessarily have to be a huge commitment. For skiers and riders looking to dip their toes into backcountry terrain, lift-accessed areas near resorts offer a great starting point. Many ski resorts provide gates that lead to out-of-bounds terrain, allowing you to explore untracked powder without hiking for hours. However, once you cross these gates, you are on your own, so treat this terrain with the same respect as more remote areas. For particularly experienced adventurers, the backcountry can take you far from the reach of civilization. You might hike for hours or even days to reach your destination. Multi-day ski touring trips, complete with overnight camping, are the ultimate test of endurance and wilderness skills. But the farther you go, the more you'll need to prepare for every possible scenario. One of the most compelling aspects of backcountry skiing and riding is its extended season, which far surpasses the constraints of traditional resort skiing and riding. While resorts are bound by operational costs, staffing needs, and the limits of the skiable terrain within their boundaries, the backcountry offers a playground that's open as long as there's snow on the ground, which in some places can be all 12 months of the year. This means that with the right conditions and access, you can enjoy turns long before resorts spin their lifts in the fall and well into the spring, or even summer. Late season skiing and riding is where the backcountry truly shines. Long after resorts have shut down for the season, high alpine zones, glaciers, and north-facing slopes can hold snow well into May, June, July, or even August or September in some places. In the early season, backcountry skiing becomes theoretically possible as soon as the first significant snowfall blankets the mountains. However, as we did mention earlier, early season terrain comes with its own challenges, especially thin snowpacks that expose rocks, roots, and other bare ground. And finally, we have to cover what's arguably the biggest circumstance drawing people into the backcountry, the snow. While the conditions out of bounds can be incredibly dangerous, once you make sure the terrain is safe, the snow stays untouched exponentially longer than in bounds, especially if it takes some effort to reach. On a powder day, the rush of floating down the mountain feels like pure magic. It's the kind of experience you'll only replicate in bounds about once in a decade, and for powder hounds, it's more than enough reason to venture beyond the ropes. Backcountry skiing and riding have been around for basically as long as the sport. So why did we decide to make this video now? Well, it's because the art of earning turns out of bounds has exploded in popularity in recent years, and we'd argue there are several reasons why. One major factor is in the increasing crowds at resorts, especially during weekends and holidays. At a typical ski resort, this can make the experience feel less like a getaway and more like a battle for parking spots, lift lines, and fresh tracks. Even under the best of natural conditions, it can often feel like too much effort for what it's worth to get a good run in. Another major driver is the rising cost of lift tickets and passes. With single-day lift tickets at major resorts now often exceeding $200, and even season passes becoming increasingly expensive, the backcountry presents a much more cost-effective alternative for those willing to invest in the right equipment and education. Finally, COVID-19 played a huge role in the backcountry boom. When things got really serious in March 2020, many ski resorts were forced to close weeks before they intended to, leaving those who were bent on skiing or riding with no other choice than to work for it. Even during the height of the pandemic, when resorts were allowed to reopen, they were shutting down sporadically, limiting capacity, or requiring reservations just to get on the lifts. For a lot of skiers and riders, this made resort days feel like more of a hassle than a getaway, even more so in certain cases than some of the circumstances we hear about today. So where did everyone turn? The backcountry. But the pandemic didn't just push people to the backcountry temporarily, it created a permanent shift. Despite the work it required, those who found the benefits of isolation and untouched powder weren't just going to go back to the crowded resorts. Add this to the other reasons backcountry skiing and riding are growing, and it's no surprise the activity has taken off in such a big way. So backcountry skiing offers unparalleled freedom and the chance to experience nature in its purest form. But with this freedom comes responsibility. Unlike resort skiing and riding, the backcountry demands self-reliance, preparation, and respect for the mountains. If you're considering venturing beyond the ropes, start by educating yourself. Take an avalanche safety course, invest in the right gear, and consider going with an experienced guide. Navigational tools like the onX Backcountry app will help you quite a bit as well. With the proper preparation, the backcountry can offer some of the most rewarding skiing and riding experiences of your life. But if you're not sure, there's no shame in sticking to the double blacks, at least for now. Thanks again to onX Backcountry for sponsoring this video. Click the link to get a 7-day free trial and 20% off the premium versions. And special thanks to our Peak patrons. If you want to find out more about our Patreon, you can click the link in the description below. For more information on over 100 destination ski resorts around the world, check out peakrankings.com. See you for the next one.